Today, let's learn about a club from Argentina. Since it's been a little while since we covered the country, we've talked about two big clubs from there, River Plate and Boca Juniors. They're two massive clubs. Today, we're going to talk about another one of their historical big clubs, that being Estudiantes de La Plata. This club was founded in 1905 as a split off from another club in La Plata, that being Gimnasia y Esgrima. As you can tell from their name there, gymnastics and fencing. This club was founded because they weren't focusing on football at the time. I love the look of this jersey here with the vertical stripes going down here through the badge. That's one of those looks that I really like on kits. It's not as common because that's generally an away jersey or it's a third jersey and not a home kit for a club. The nickname for the club is Los Pincharatas, which means the rat stabbers, which probably comes off the fact that Estudiantes means students. Probably in the early days, there was lab work that they were doing, maybe dissecting rats. The club's home colors are red. White is their other color. You can see them both on the away jersey here. Those are two colors that they take as an homage to a previous Argentinian club that's been dissolved. They were called Alumni. It's kind of the godfather of Argentinian football, seeing as those colors have also been taken by other clubs within the country. Unlike many clubs, they have two different badges that you're going to see on their kits. The first is a red shield with a red and white there. The second is the one that's on this kit. As you can see here, it's a pennant with the letter E in it over an oak leaf. Their trophy haul is pretty impressive, although their trophy cabinet hasn't been getting stocked further in the last decade, seeing as their latest title was in 2010. That said, they have 6 top-flight titles within the country, and were the first ever club outside of the big 5 clubs in Argentina to win the league, that being in 1967. The most impressive items in the cabinet are 4 Copa Libertadores trophies, that making them one of the most impressive and accomplished teams within the history of that competition, the biggest in South American football. That means they're tied with River Plate as far as titles, and they follow only Independiente, Boca Juniors, and Uruguay's Peñarol as far as titles. One of their biggest seasons was 1968, that being the year they won the Copa Libertadores for the first time, first of 3 in a row at that point, with a massive team winning those titles. That meant they could compete in the Intercontinental Cup that year, when they competed against the victor of the biggest competition, the Champions League, in Europe. That they defeated Manchester United in a match that was remembered for being very brutal. They also competed in the Copa Interamericana, the first ever one, in that season in 1968 as well. Opponents of the club at the time would probably tell you they were a very violent playing team, as well as an anti-football kind of team in the 60s. Anti-football being a term that would probably take a little too long to explain here, so I'd say look that one up on the side for yourself. This is all under the leadership of their manager, Osvaldo Zubeldia, a man who, pretty much from my readings I can tell you, is a love him or hate him kind of character. But he's an important one for modern football, seeing as he was one of the first proponents of bringing in a lot of concepts that are important these days. Those being things like playing with the offside trap, or doing training ground routines, kind of trick plays when you're starting from a free kick, as well as bringing in the concept of double man marking players at times, especially attacking opponent players that were very good. Let's talk about former players, starting a family connection here off the bat with Juan Ramon Veron, a player that was a forward, midfielder as well, great goal scorer for the club in that late 60s era we've been talking about. 68 was the big year for him, seeing as he scored in that Manchester United game I talked about, as well as scoring in all 3 legs of the Copa Libertadores final against Palmeiras in 1968. The family connection comes in with our second player, that being Juan Sebastian Veron, a player that played for Manchester United in the middle of his career at the beginning of the century. A little ironic that his father scored against them and knocked them out in an important match during his time with the club. That being said, started with Estudiantes as a kid, played with them later in the 2000s, having come back to Argentina from England. The important things here being, like his father, he won the Copa Libertadores in 2009, having won the league title just 3 years before in 2006. The interesting thing is by nicknames. His father was known as La Bruja. That means his son was known as La Brujita. And the last name is a little understated in their history, but it helps me bring up their 2006 Apertura title, this being a defensive midfielder, Rodrigo Braña. Important thing here for 2006 is that in that tournament, they won their first title in 23 years. They won it defeating Boca Juniors in a one-off match because of a tie at the end of the season. Probably a very memorable season for their fans, seeing as they defeated their rival in the Clásico Platense, that being Gimnasia, who we talked about before. They beat them 7-0. That season, they also rattled off 10 different wins in a row, and they were led by a man you might know from Spain, that being Diego Simeone, the Argentine who coaches for Atleti at the moment. It was a big season for them. So who do you need to know in their current squad? The first name I'll rattle off for you is Mauro Boselli. He's a forward, very good goal scorer. He was with the club in 2009 as well when they won the Copa Libertadores behind his tournament high goal scoring record. He's come back to the club just a season ago. Second would be another of the club's returning sons in recent seasons, that being Jose Sosa, one of their most famous midfielders from the 2006 Apertura final. From there, he traveled Europe for a while, returning here in 2002 after playing for large clubs in Europe like Bayern Munich, Napoli, Besiktas in Turkey, as well as playing for AC Milan in Italy. And to wrap up our family tradition with the club, know that Dejan Veron, son of Juan Sebastian, grandson of Juan Ramon, plays for the club as a midfielder at the age of 23. So that's your rundown in history on Estudiantes de La Plata, generally just known as Estudiantes, from Argentina.